Good day and welcome to Drew's Book Reviews. Today we are talking about War in the Fallows by Jahmil and Jahmar Effend. If you're interested in what I have to say about this book, stay tuned. This review is coming right up. Okay, so War in the Fallows by Jahmil and Jahmar Effend. This book was sent to me as an advanced reader's copy for a review. So first and foremost, I just want to put a big thank you out to Jahmil and Jahmar Effend for sending me your book to read, as I did enjoy it, and we'll definitely talk a lot about why. So thank you so much for sending me a copy of your book. I do appreciate it. I always appreciate when someone offers me a book that they'd like me to read. So thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. Okay, so in this book, it is basically a story of three different kingdoms that eventually merge in conflict, and war breaks out in these three kingdoms, because each king wanting to aspire to be something more than just being a king. This is a world which has been created where gods walk among men. Gods referred to as the all beings. So it's an interesting idea within this book that I haven't really seen done in other fantasy books, is this idea of the gods. Now, to be clear, gods have been done in many fantasy books. You know, take Mistborn or Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, Wheel of Time. There's, you know, the Creator and the Dark One and the Shadow in the Wheel of Time. So gods have definitely been part of different fantasy books and genre, but the unique thing that I really liked about this story is not so much that the gods walk among men, but who the gods are. In this world, when a king reaches the age of 40, they ascend to become gods and are worshipped by the people as gods. So that is just a really interesting aspect and setup for this book. And these kings that have kings and queens that have ascended to become gods kind of form this greater council of the world, in which the kings and queens of the land are nothing more than their stewards of the gods. The kings and queens aren't really in charge. It's really this grand council of gods or all beings that is in charge, and they walk among men and they guide and direct the affairs of the world. But here's the thing with that. The gods themselves are themselves not any different than men. At least they don't behave any differently than the men of the world, the leaders or kings and royalty of the world. Even amongst the gods, there seems to be this conflict of different ideas being put forth about what is what. So of course, the gods are literally the mothers and fathers of the kings and queens. They're all family, they're all related to the rulers of the world. And each family is basically wanting different things done within this world, has a different idea of what needs to be accomplished and how it needs to be done. And this inevitably has risen to conflict between the three kingdoms of the Fallows, in which war has now broken out in the land. What I love about this idea as well is that these gods, they don't seem to have any magical abilities. They're not superpowered beings like we see in other fantasy books. Like many cult leaders that we have seen within our own world history who have set themselves up to be these gods or to be godlike, we see the same thing happening within this world, in which there is this religious belief in which once a king or queen has ascended to the council of the gods, they are in fact gods themselves. Even though they don't really seem to have any magical powers or abilities, they certainly don't appear or come across to me as inherently what we would think of as an actual god, but they are worshipped as gods themselves. And that is kind of a concept that I really like with the way that this is presented. Now this is a fantasy book. I would definitely call it a fantasy book for sure, but it's a fantasy book that doesn't really have any magic within it, which is rare, because most fantasy tales have some form of magic or magic system deeply involved or rooted within the overall story. Even books that are very light on the magic side of things, such as A Song of Fire, Ice or Game of Thrones, magic is still present within that world that has been created, even if very minimally. In this world, there is no magic. It's just a fantasy setting where you have kingdoms, kings and queens trying to deal with the struggles of the world around them. And I just thought that was a really unique approach to a fantasy novel, where we have these gods involved and these men, but there's no actual magic embedded within the world itself. Maybe that'll show up in later books. I don't know. I understand that this is supposed to be a trilogy. Well, I can say that I'm certainly looking forward to the next installment in this series. So there are two kings particularly within this story that for me really kind of stick out as complete oppositely contrasted characters in terms of their personality, their temperament, and just basically their general character profile. We have King Simon, who seems to be this very nice guy that wants to be kind and good to his people, but he's drawn into this war and this conflict, and he must be a king and make those hard decisions to do what is necessary in order to best serve his people and the kingdom, and to make sure that there is peace and prosperity for his household and his family. And then we've got King Asher. King Asher is a bit of a mixed bag, I found. It is part of the character aspect that I did enjoy actually quite a bit, is with King Asher. He's a bit of a nutcase. He's very quick-tempered. He seems to come across as, well, quite frankly, mean and angry all the time. But he's also an individual who also just wants to do what's right for the most part. He is commanded by his all-being father to basically break his marriage vows, get a girl pregnant in order to have an heir to his kingdom. But he consistently refuses, says, how can I do this? How can I break my vows? How could you ask me to do this? This isn't right. I am the king of this land, and you don't get a say in how I do this. You don't get a say in my relationships with the people I care about. And so that is really interesting dynamic. But on the one hand, he's constantly losing his temper, and he's angry and hostile towards so many people around him. But he cares about the people in his family deeply. He cares about those he is in a relationship with. So he kind of has that duality, I guess, about him. He's got his good moral side, and he's also got his quick to anger and aggressive side. So he kind of comes across as a bit of a, well, jerk, you know, not a nice guy by any means. But so I kind of appreciate that duality within King Asher and how that works. One thing I really loved about how this book approaches and deals with certain issues within our society is how it approaches the LGBTQIA+ community and how those relationships are dealt with within this story. I loved how that was approached. So one character, I'm not going to spoil what character this is, because you really should just read the book to find out. But I love how their relationship, this one male character, their relationship with their husband, is just portrayed as being something that is completely normal. There is nothing within the text and the characters and the world that would suggest that this was anything normal. It's just, that's the way it is. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody questions this. Nobody has the appearance of being uncomfortable with this at all. It's just, this man has a husband. That's the way it is. And it's just treated like any other married couple. The relationship dynamic is treated the same as any other married couple within this world in this book. And I absolutely love the way that that was approached and addressed, because I read books where it is so much bam, bam, bam in your face about it, and it's just really every other page they're overemphasizing these aspects of this character's sexuality, but versus just treating it like normal, like it isn't something to be concerned about, that it's no more abnormal than a husband and wife couple. And I love the way that that was approached, and I can really respect that kind of approach with any author or writer in any book. And I just thought that was really well done, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So definitely a good big thumbs up for that. I really appreciate that, and it's good to see more of that representation within books as well, and done in a good way, done in a way that makes sense to me. We don't want to overemphasize it, but we also don't want to treat it like it's something to be cautiously stepped around, or that we have difficulty addressing or come. So really good to see that. I've talked a lot of praise about this book. There were just a few drawbacks that I had, a few critiques, I guess I could say. But really the critiques are quite minor compared to what I loved about this book. Really only kind of two things is, first of all, the world building. This is a short book, so while the ideas about how this world works were certainly there, I really felt that I would have liked to have more time spent in the world building aspect to get to understand this world and these characters to a greater extent. And while I loved the characters within the book itself, I really felt that the characters, this would have been a much better book if we had the opportunity to spend more time developing the characters and the world within which they are in more detail. Now, FDM says that's not necessarily, I'm not saying this is bad, that the characters weren't well done. I think the characters really were well done within this book, but I really wanted to spend more time with them. So, you know, in a way it's a positive. The characters were so awesome that I wanted to spend more time with them. I wanted to get to know them and their history more. I wanted to understand them more, especially the Council of the Gods, or the Council of the All Beings. I wanted to get to know and understand these people better. I wanted to spend more time with the Ascension Ritual. I wanted to spend more time with the individual gods themselves. I wanted to see a greater world built out from that. And so at the end of the day, the only downside that I can see to this book is it could use more world building. It could use more world building and character building within the book, because I wanted to see more. And this is because I want more from it. Not because I thought it was necessarily poorly done. And I have to emphasize that I don't think that it was poorly done, but I wanted to see more. I want more. And as I understand, this is a trilogy of books, so there will be more coming, and I definitely look forward to having the opportunity to read the next two books that come out in this series. Overall, I'd have to say I really enjoyed War in the Fallows. I love the concepts, the ideas. I think the characters are great characters, and it would be great to get to know them more and understand them more, and get to see more of them, learn more about them, so that I could connect perhaps on a bit of a greater level with them. You know, they definitely were characters that were interesting to me, and I look forward to reading more on that. So it'll be really good to see the next books in this series and how they develop. So those are just some of my thoughts on War in the Fallows. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You could follow me on Twitter, Instagram, join me on Discord. I've also got a Patreon. You could support this channel for as little as $1 per month to get early access to videos, choose my next read, name in the credits, that kind of thing. If you want to do so. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, keep on reading. Bye.